Hey guys, Fruit Panda here. In this video I will give you some very useful tricks you can use whenever going scavenging. I will try to cover most aspects of this part of the game, such as inventory management, usage of tools, stealth and noise generation, and finally combat, while trying to avoid spoilers. Now before we start, there are some important things you need to remember. Number 1, you're leading a group of civilians, not soldiers. That means you can't just barge in everywhere armed with a shotgun and deliver a rain of lead to every other bunch of survivors you come across, because your guys will simply either not survive the encounter at all, or come back home more depressed than a teenage girl that just found out she hasn't gotten her new One Direction iPhone case for Christmas. Number 2, the combat capabilities of your survivors are very limited. Engaging in a 1 vs 2 fight will almost always result in the death of your scavenger, though even a regular duel might not turn out that great for you if you're fighting an armed person or a well-trained soldier. Number 3, you will require immeasurable amounts of patience and nerves of steel to wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. Sometimes it might take up to a few hours of game time to make sure you're safe to leave your hiding spot or get that sneaky dagger stuck in somebody's butt. So remember, don't rush things. Rushing things will eventually get you killed. Now that you know these things, we can move on to our first major part of the guide, inventory management. Considering the fact that your characters can only bring a limited amount of items each night, and also consume a various amount of goods each day, this makes things tough to manage, especially in the beginning. Picking a place you want to scavenge should be based on what you need the most at the moment. Top priorities are items that the group needs to get well and/or survive another day. Those involve food, meds to cure sickness, and alcohol to cure severe depression. Add fuel to the list when you're facing winter. Now if you're absolutely sure they won't die of starvation or go sad panda mode because of those damn neighbor kids you've just sent to hell for begging for medication, it's time to make sure the group is well armed. Being well armed will prevent getting wounded during raids on our household and prevent items from getting stolen, so that makes weapons our number 2 priority on the loot list. Whenever you feel like you have enough food to get through the day, keep in mind, like I said, that some of the items you already have might have been stolen during the night by a raid. And enough weapons, it's time to fill yourself with as many goods of great value as you can. Those involve, but are not limited to, moonshine, sugar, diamonds, again, weapons, medical herbs, oh yes, Resident Evil hype, and tobacco. Last on the list are materials, which are still very important as they make sure our household is growing at a reasonable rate and we can get to the stage where you can grow your own goods safely, fairly quickly. Materials are on the very end of the list because they take up a lot of space, they have little to no value during trading, and you can get lots of those whenever the wandering merchant magically appears knocking on your door again. Oh and yes, you should absolutely do it every time he comes over. Trade stuff for materials. Seriously, every single time. Wood and raw components. Thank me later. Oh, and if you still have extra space, pick up items raising morale, like books, cigarettes, coffee, but do this only if you have the extra slots, because these items can be purchased from the trader for little currency. Let's move on and talk about how we're going to get all of those things. Unfortunately, the most valuable items are usually locked away or hidden behind bars, but thankfully there are a few ways to deal with security in Pogoren. In order to open locked doors and bars, you can use the stealth approach and craft lockpicks, which are only good for a single set of locks, or the very noisy crowbar. I prefer to use the crowbar at all times. The reason for that is that it has almost infinite uses and it's a great tool to make noise, but more on that later. We also need something to get rid of the rubble. That's where the shovel comes in handy. Now there are 2 more tools we can use, the hatchet and the saw. But for those, we will need to upgrade our item workbench to level 2, which is kind of expensive but pays off really quickly. You can hack furniture up to get a really big stockpile of wood and fuel with the axe, which has limited uses by the way, but it's still durable enough not to worry about. The saw is, like the lockpick, a one-time use item that'll get us through iron bars and is kind of expensive to craft compared to what you might actually get out from it, but I still recommend carrying a few of them on a sweep run of any place, since they stack in one slot up to a total of 4. Tools should be carried almost only on the first exploration of a scavenging spot, in which you should get rid of all dangerous enemies, clear all rubble, and open up all of the said security measures. After that, they will only take up valuable space in your inventory, and that's completely unneeded. It's time to get our hands dirty. In order to effectively remove enemies from the game, you will be required to make good use of the hiding spots and generate noise in order to attract enemies. There are different ways to generate various amounts of noise, but most commonly we will resort to A. Leaving doors open, B. Running instead of walking, C. Using crowbar on a lock. An open door is a visual cue which will make the victim come over to investigate from afar. Running is an audio cue, like the crowbar, but will only attract people that are on a single story below or above you. Crowbar has a huge noise range and will most likely make a few enemies come at you at the same time, but you can use that to your advantage by simply picking off the last person from an investigation party. Remember though, that you can only use the hiding spot if you aren't in the line of sight of an enemy. Otherwise they will still pursue you and engage you. Now, don't bother using ranged weapons at all. They aren't a one-shot kill type of weapon, and they make far too much noise to be useful at all. Plus, they use valuable ammo. The knife is the best way to deal with any danger, as from behind or by surprise, it's a very efficient murder. Please note that killing bandits or soldiers will not result in any morale penalty, so you've got the green light to deliver the pain train on those. That's it for today's guide. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please make sure to drop them in the comments as I actively read and answer those. Also check out the links below the video. Thanks and see you later.